Yeah, I just want to make sure that's
Close
the
it,
one
and
that
then we'll do the step.
he changed his mind. All right. Ready? Go ahead and start. Good evening, Kennedale. This is our April Plans and Zoning Commission regular meeting, and it is April 24th at 6 p.m. here at the City Council Chambers at 405 Municipal Drive, Kennedale, Texas. First thing I'd go ahead and do at this point, we're going to do a call to order. Madam Secretary? Can I get a roll call?
Place 1, Andrew Molkowski. Absent. Place 2, Michael Brown.
Present.
Place 4, Alfredo Jones.
Present.
Place 5, Socorro Martinez.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Also a pleasure to have you along with us. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do our consent agenda first. And that's going to be the approval of the minutes from March 27th, 2025 regular meeting. If you guys recall at this point, we had a discussion on the draft of updates for the Unified Developmental Code. Those meeting items are in front of you. Was there any discussion at this time? No discussion? Okay. Well, if there's no discussion at this point, I'm going to go ahead and request a motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the March 27th regular meeting.
All right, can I get a second, please?
I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor of the approval of minutes of 27 March? Aye. Any opposed? Negative? You have 3-0, ma'am. Minutes are approved. Secondary, we're going to go ahead and back up to our public comments. We do welcome comments from the public. Anyone that is wish to speak at this time? We have any signed up? No? Okay, was there anybody?
We have no
that-
comment.
Sorry?
We have no registration for comment.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody that wanted to comment at all? Okay. Just go ahead and fill out a request over there. We're going to go ahead and open that up at 6:02, ma'am, for public comment. No public?
Want to do the public hearing for the item? This is just the general one.
Right, general public. So he's on the general item, on the case? Okay, that's all I need to know. All right, we're going to go ahead and close the public comment at this time, 6:03, with no speakers. Next, we're going to go ahead and go into our public hearings, PZ case 2507, to conduct a public hearing and consider a proposed conditional use permit as required by section 24.2C of the Unified Developmental Code for battery energy storage systems, a new land use located at 509 South New Hope Road, Canon EC Survey Abstract 378, Tract 1EE, and A1327 TRS 1B01 and 2B04 of the City of Kennedale, Tarrant County, Texas. Staff, whenever you are ready. Take your time.
Hello, Nick Murray, here in Kennedale since the 90s, and I'm obviously for the battery storage facility. I watched the video from the last meeting on that, and I was rather disappointed that I saw a lot of earmarking and misinformation on some scientific aspects. My engineer, my background is in science engineering. So I just wanted to voice my opinion. I think Kennedale, when I moved here in the 90s, it was all about the old stores and the scrap yards and racetracks, and I kind of feel like we moved a little bit past that, and I would like to see, I think this would be a good representation of the future
Well, thank you very much, Speak.
No more registration for comment.
All right, thank you. All right, we can go ahead and close the public hearing comments at 6:07. And staff, did you want? Come on up, Nathan.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good to be with you again here tonight. Thank you, Lucia, for filling in for us. Happy to have you here as well. At this point, I'm happy to bring up the applicant to discuss the project, and then I can go over my staff report. Or I can, let me ask you, would you prefer me to go ahead and just do my staff report now, or do you guys want to go afterward? How do you? Floors. Okay. So my staff report that's included in your packet talks about existing conditions out there that we have. So what we're talking about is 509 South New Hope Road. If this project rings a bell, it's because it's been here before. We had a similar case, or the same case, come before this body last year. So if you may recall that. Since last year, there have been some somewhat new developments. I kind of spoke to those developments last year with residential development. So last year, like your current staff report, we did not provide a recommendation, or we did not recommend the project for approval. And our reasonings behind that is the same as last year, with some exceptions being that I believe a lot of folks in town discussed their concerns with this type of land use there. Since then, I know myself, other folks have learned a lot more about this particular project and the chemistry involved in these batteries. That's a big discussion in the United States, but just I want to echo a couple highlights from the staff report that I mentioned, is that this land use would be unique to Kennedale and also our region. I'll repeat what I said last year, that I just think the name Fort Watt is pretty cool, you know? That is, I think, like the gentleman that lives here said, that when he starts talking about Kennedale and new offerings in Kennedale, this could be something that, again, is unique to Kennedale. Our development code that we're working on, the UDC updates that we've had discussions about, we have included language that defines battery energy storage systems. And a lot of this project was the catalyst of providing those definitions for land uses similar to that. Now, in the future UDC update, we still would require a conditional use permit, just like we're here today, right? So we do believe that the site itself, that 509 parcel, it's a big parcel, right? And so the front half of it that's off of New Hope Road is zoned residential, but the back half of it is zoned industrial. I do find that to be a very remote location back there on the other side of the creek. I don't have any concerns that this project would be visible from New Hope. From other parcels adjacent to it, certainly, I want to say you probably will see it. Last year, I talked about the Little School Road Extension Bridge that would go through the parkway, over the rail tracks, and connect to New Hope. And so when you're driving that, you'll probably see this project from that. Last year, I spoke about the reservations we have about what that may look like, but there is a lot of tree canopy there. So shielding, screening, things of that nature, I don't really have much concerns about it. But I do want to, again, touch on the fact that last year I mentioned we have residential development planned for that part of town. The city does. It's had a long, that's been the discussion in town for the last, I'd say, 10, 15 years to see that part of town develop. Some folks will say, if, in my experience, it's just a matter of when, right? Because that's the nature of cities, is to grow at some point, right? When that will occur is the question here in this community. And so as it develops into residential, we need to look at compatibility with uses. And so when we were going through the exercise of the comprehensive plan update, future land use plan update, the steering committee, planning and zoning, and the city council approved the future land use plan that is to date. Not unlike the last one that we had that reserved this part of town for residential communities. Medium density is what our future land use plan calls for it, which would include this back parcel that is currently zoned industrial. And so the recommendation that we always go with is what's on the approved or adopted plans. And so the question of whether or not it's consistent with it, we'll say that it's not consistent with the future land use plan, but the purpose of a conditional use permit is to bring it before you all, the appointed members of the community, and then following this, it'll go to council. And staff, we don't have the final say in anything. Our role is just to tell you whether or not it's consistent with your adopted plans. So in that sense, we did not provide a recommendation for approval just because it's not consistent with the plans. I'll speak briefly on some of the concerns, emergency management, things of that nature. We do have the fire chief here that can speak if you have any specific questions to response times or how they would respond to something like this. And I'll defer to the applicant and their engineers, and probably that, I think they have some fire prevention, fire safety, material scientists that can kind of speak to some of the chemistry of the battery. What I have learned is that this type of chemistry does, it has a higher tolerances. And so compared to the typical news fare that you see about, you know, Teslas or EV vehicles or your cell phone batteries kind of blowing up, exploding, causing fires and things like that, it is a different chemistry. So given the redundancies, one of the things that I think I even spoke with the applicant last night, or excuse me, yesterday, was that I believe those concerns for me have been addressed, and they've got a plan and a mitigation, just like anything. But like I said before, is that I'm not the one that will be responding to that. So that would be your fire department, emergency personnel. So with that, I encourage P&Z to ask the questions, review the documents that they've provided, and the same would go to council. And with that, I'll defer to the applicant, and the floor is yours.
One thing, Nathan. Last time when we went through this, one of the reasons it was not recommended was simply because there was no language in the UDC. Are we still kind of applying that thought moving forward since it's not been advised, or?
Well, no. So the last time, we didn't recommend it because it just wasn't consistent with the plans, and then we had some documentation from fire relaying their concerns. So based off of those two things, we didn't provide it. We didn't recommend the project for approval. The language, the definition itself isn't an issue. This is the exact instrument and method for the city to consider a land use that's currently not on the books. And so this would be a new land use. So this is the process to allow for a new land use there.
Okay, I just looking for the clarification. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Well, the part where the project will take place, that particular part of the property is zoned industrial. And so in our staff report, one of the things I mentioned is that that is an appropriate location for a land use. When you're looking to site a project such as this, you want to look for areas that are kind of like on your outskirts or areas that are zoned industrial. In that sense, it is appropriate. It's just that we have residential that's adjacent to it. So given that, and then looking at the future land use plan that we have, it's not consistent with that plan. And so staff, I don't want to provide a recommendation saying, hey, I recommend this for approval, even though, so my directive is to make sure that everything comes through, meets that plan, right? And I don't want to provide a recommendation that would say, don't go with your adopted plan, but that's a decision for you all in council. So again, I encourage you to listen to the applicant, their presentation, but we did not, those are the reasons why we didn't offer, or we didn't recommend approval, because it's not consistent with the plan.
Thanks, Nathan. Do you know how to get this up?
Oh, Lucia. He's got a presentation. She'll throw it up there.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank y'all for hearing us out here, and thanks, Nathan, for giving that description. I know that some of y'all have heard from us before, and like Nathan said, we kind of came through here and then came through council, and there were a lot of concerns that the council had that they felt weren't answered well enough. And so we've gone back and done that work, been working with them quite a bit to answer a lot of those questions. And the mayor has kind of asked us to, to come back and give it another shot, and, thinks it would be really good for the town and the growth of the city in general. So I appreciate y'all taking the time to go through this. It's pretty short. See if I can zoom in a little bit here so it's a little easier to see. Just a quick background about who we are as Cypress Creek. We've been around for over a decade. We've built solar and storage projects all over the country. 800 something projects, and we've got a pretty exemplary safety record during that time. And we think that this area right here in Kennedale is a great spot for this project. And so I'm glad I have a mouse here so I can kind of point to things for you. Running on the west side of this picture right here, this is South New Hope Road. And so like Nathan said, the project is set back pretty far here, away from any kind of residential development, either on the other side of the road or even on this side of the road. We originally did have this project sitting on the north side of the parcel, directly adjacent to this substation up on the north. That's the electric substation that Encore owns. But we heard from the city that they want to expand Little School Road. And so we worked with those engineers to try to move our project south so we could still stay on this parcel, but make room for that road, because we don't want to, if we're all on the same side of growth for the city, we don't want to stand in the way of growth for the city in any of those ways. So we've got a relatively small portion of the total 50-acre-ish parcel, and we think it's a great spot because it is, zoned industrial already. It's and battery storage is a great way to help strengthen the electric grid. There's a lot of growth coming in, not just in the city itself, but in the sort of Fort Worth Metroplex in general. And with more and more growth comes a lot more strain on the grid, not to mention the sort of explosion in AI and data centers that's planned for the next 5 or 10 years. And so we really expect a lot more demand for electricity during that time. And so hopefully by having these big battery banks essentially there, they can help give energy back to the grid when there's a high demand. We want to avoid, any more situations like Winter Storm Uri back in the day when so many people were without power. And the electric grid, ERCOT, has actually come out and said that the reason that their grid didn't go down at all last summer was because there's been a lot of these energy storage projects that have come online. So we think this is a great spot for it in in an area that can really benefit from it. And like I said, it's sort of zoned industrial already, which is this purple color, and you've got industrial parcels on 3 sides of this. And so we've done our best to sort of tuck it away as far as we can from the residential areas. And we think that it's very consistent with the other uses in the area, especially seeing as this is, electric infrastructure, and the parcel right to the north of it is an existing electrical substation. So there's already electric infrastructure in the area, and so it pairs really nicely with this land use. For a little bit of background on what these projects look like, these are 2 other projects that we have that are about the same size. Other places in Texas, these are out southeast and southwest of Houston, I believe, and you can see that these are essentially just shipping containers almost that are full of batteries. So a big battery bank that can just store energy during the day when it's most abundant, when there's the sun is shining, there's a lot of solar energy on the grid. And then as the sun goes down in the evening, everyone comes home, flips on their lights, is, making dinner, putting the kids to bed, running their AC, doing laundry. That's when there's a real need for electricity, and you've got demand being higher than supply. And so that's when when these batteries sort of give energy back to the grid and help really close that gap between the higher demand and the lower supply. And so hopefully we can avoid any blackouts. And these are especially important on those really hot days in the middle of the summer and those crazy cold snaps that we get in the winter. And like you can see here, they stand about 8 to 10 feet tall, and surrounded by gravel, and of course have both fencing around them to make sure that nobody can get in, but also we keep as many of the trees naturally as we can, but then plant more trees and vegetation around there to make sure that it's hidden from view as much as possible. A little bit about the safety, and I realize this may be a little hard to see, so I apologize for that. But I just wanted to talk about the sort of redundancies and safety that we have built into these containers. Not only do we have these connected to our 24/7, 365 monitoring system, where we've got folks sat in a room that you should see it. It looks like NASA mission control with all their screens out everywhere. That's pretty cool. But they're constantly monitoring all of these projects. And if any temperature, voltage, anything gets out of a normal area, we shut it down, disconnect it from the grid immediately, and send a tech out to check on it to see what possibly got out of the normal range of operations. Those normal operating ranges that we cut off at are, well within the safe ranges. You've got your safe operating range of temperatures sit, here, whereas our limits before we cut it off are here. So we've got, a safety factor built in for sure. And be that, there's all sorts of detectors, whether that's voltage detectors, that's smoke detectors, temperature detectors, anything that you can think of, we're monitoring in there and shutting it down if anything is slightly out of spec. Yes, ma'am.
How fast would the tech show up to take care of if there was to be an issue?
Yeah, usually if we've got a call out to a tech, and the techs are normally out at least once a week for regular maintenance, but if anything were slightly out of spec, they're usually here in 90 minutes or so.
So there's no one on site?
There's no one constantly on site, but we do have people coming out once or twice a week for regular maintenance, in combination with that 24/7 remote monitoring.
How often do these issues happen?
We have never had an issue for any of our battery projects. It's, as you will hear, as I'll try to get across, the likelihood of any sort of incident happening is, slim to none. There are several, tens of safety factors built in. That being said, if something were to go wrong, we always want to plan for the worst case scenario, just so that we've got those plans in place if the unthinkable happens, right? And so that's why we work with a number of different providers to put plans in place. And this comes in a number of different forms. The first is an emergency response plan. And so that's working with the fire department and the police department to set up a plan before this even goes into construction, saying, if something were to happen, who's going to get the call? How do they respond? What are we going to do? And so we work with them to set up those plans and to give those trainings. And we give those trainings not only before the project is operational, but also annual trainings, because we know there's inevitably going to be turnover throughout the course of the project, and the folks there would be responsible for responding. And so we always carry on with annual trainings. On top of that, one of the concerns that we heard from the city and from city council was resourcing of the fire department and the first responders in the city. And we don't have, hundreds of folks on staff to respond to these. And so we've actually started working with a third-party response firm. They specialize in responding to battery fires, and they end up not responding to many of these types of batteries because, like Nathan said, the chemistry of this battery is pretty different than the ones that you see in both Teslas, or if you Google battery storage, you'll see a lot of big stories and some pretty bad ones about the older technology that the battery industry used to use. The industry has really moved past that a lot. And if you have questions specifically about the chemistry, I can answer them, or we have our safety engineers here as well. But nonetheless, even though we think it's incredibly safe, we've contracted with a firm that specializes in electrical fire response, and they respond very quickly and sort of take over the scene and relieve the local first responders from the responsibility of having to, contain that scene. And so there's been a lot of work with the city to understand what the limitations are, what the concerns are, and to sort of help to fill those gaps so that everyone feels as comfortable as possible as we're going through this process.
Backing up to one of the slides that you showed, I don't have a name on with this Fort Watch storage. It appears not that one. Yes. There seems to be some creeks or little tributaries all along there. How would that affect the water,
Yes, ma'am. So there,
whatever they are?
Yeah.
The creeks.
yeah. So on the sort of northern half, running, I kind of say through the middle of this plain here of this parcel, there is what they call a 100-year floodplain. So if there was what they call, the type of flooding that is supposed to happen once every 100 years, that the area sort of in the middle of this parcel would build up water. That being said, that's why we've kind of moved to the south of the parcel, where we're stepping away from those floodplains. On top of that, we've got, lots of safeguards in place, whether that be the detention ponds that we build in to make sure that any water stays away from the batteries. But all of our batteries are also built up off of the ground, and so they should be clear of any groundwater.
I think that's what I was concerned with, maybe some runoff from the processing.
Yes, so in the worst case event of some sort of incident, we don't expect any runoff. That's, nothing in the battery should liquidate at all. The battery containers are watertight. They test them by just dunking them in swimming pools and leaving them there for hours at a time. So no water can get in, nothing can get out, were some incident to happen. And if we're worried about sort of groundwater in the area, the batteries are raised up off of the ground, 18 inches to 2 feet normally. And then we do have those detention ponds around the site as well to make sure that we mitigate any kind of excess water that is, flowing through the area when it rains.
I was just worried about, like I said, the grading, because they're going to bring in Little Road. Once they change that changes the grade. And then if you already have some creeks or,
Yeah.
well, it's not a river, I know it's a smaller body of water, and then that would cause issues down the line.
Absolutely. You're thinking ahead. Yeah. And that's exactly what we do. We've been working with the engineers to understand what that road extension would look like. We worked with them a lot in figuring out where's the best place for our project. How are they going to change the sort of landscape of that parcel? And we're planning for that. We commission hydrology studies to understand how exactly water works in the area, what are the flow patterns, et cetera, what can we expect, and how do we design and build our project to best account for all of that.
And we've had a little bit of staff turnover since you were here last. Have you reengaged the fire department, our new chief, on considerations we had spoke to last year about training equipment, those type of things?
Yes, yeah, we have. We've been working with, Chief Peterson has been great to work with, met with us on a number of occasions to help us understand, what would be needed in sort of like training, equipment, helping get comfortable with, we want everyone on the same page of feeling good about this moving forward. Because, if we want to build here, we want to build a project that's going to be here a long time. We want to be good neighbors, walk hand in hand. And so that's why, we've invested in a lot in the community, whether that's donating to, the Educational Foundation, whether that's supporting Chamber of Commerce, et cetera, running scholarship programs for the local seniors. And part of that is a donation to the fire department to help with both compensate them for their time, for the training, but also to help with any gear that they might, need. As well as offering to place a bond with the city to be called upon, in the event of any sort of emergency response. And again, I want to stress that, these types of batteries this chemistry has never had an incident. We don't expect anything, but, as Chief Peterson will tell you, it's his job to think about the worst case scenarios and plan for them, and hopefully never have to use those plans, but to plan for them nonetheless. And so that's what we've been really trying to do, is work with him and his guys and the city staff to make sure we're all on the same plan, same page, and planning for any eventuality.
And your customer is ERCOT or Encore for the energy that you?
So we work with both Encore and ERCOT. We work with them starting out. We do pretty in-depth studies that take 9 to 12 months to do for everyone to understand, if we were to plug a battery into the grid here, what would happen? Would it overload circuits nearby? Are there any upgrades that need to be done? Is it safe to plug into the grid here? And we've gotten all of those studies back. Those are run by Encore and approved by ERCOT. So we work with both of those folks throughout the planning process.
Any other further questions? Do you have another speaker that wanted to come up? And
Well, I just wanted to,
Or continue?
yeah,
Yeah, you can do that too.
I just wanted to call out one of the big benefits to the city is the expected tax revenue over this time. You know, we're taking up approximately 10 or so acres, so you could fit, you know, maybe 10 to 20 single-family homes in that area. But the sort of difference in the magnitude of the value of property taxes that are coming to the city is, you know, vastly different. And so if we think that this is, you know, a good area, industrially zoned, it's got electric infrastructure nearby, if we think it's a good place for the project, can be massively beneficial. You know, over the planned life of the project, this has got, you know, $11 million going to the school district. It's got $6 or $7 million going directly to the city, and, you know, and more going to the county writ large. And so we think that there's a lot that this could really help with the growth of the city that Nathan was talking so much about.
So the ask is for a conditional use permit, and it's presently industrial and residential,
Yes, ma'am. And
but we don't have.
the
conditional-
parcel, I guess the parcel itself that the landowner owns is this sort of circled red area plus this part here where it says R2. However, our project would only be on sort of the southern side and be just on this industrial part of the parcel. So we're not, you know, touching at, you know, anywhere near the residential part of the parcel. We're sticking to the industrial side where it's got industrial, you know, all around. And so we think it's a great spot. We've got, you know, plenty of folks here, safety engineers, support staff, that if you have any more questions about the project, you know, we're happy to answer those. Also, I know that it's not a full committee today, so if there's any questions that you have that aren't answered or not answered to your liking, I'm happy to come back next month to vote on it when there is a full committee. If you don't feel, you know, comfortable about this right now, you know, this is my livelihood, my lifeblood is like trying to get projects like this built to help our system, to help our grid, and to help the cities that they're in. And so, you know, if there's anything that I can go back and do in the next month, any questions I can answer to help you guys feel more comfortable recommending this to council, then I'm all for sort of tabling that until next month when we can come back and get everyone feeling as comfortable as they can.
Table.
Nathan, can we chat again one more time?
Similarly, my livelihood is to be attacked. Yeah.
Just a quick question. So conditional land use, the language of that, when it pertains to something as such, we're assuming at this point it's going to be a time period expires, return land to previous condition in this scenario?
That's typical unless it gets renewed by a future body after the term expires. So if the request is, the life of the project would be a 20-year conditional use permit there. I think they have plans to probably decommission this site, and they have a whole process that's involved with that to return it to those conditions. They'll probably be able to speak better, speak more to that process. But just like a special exception that the Board of Adjustment would issue or a conditional use permit, they would be granted for a certain period of time by a city council. And then before it expires, those applicants would need to return and reapply for that land use to continue.
Okay, I was just making sure that the communication lines were exactly understood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So if they were to get approved, in yours, I think that you said the other part would still residential, would the residential want to build right next to that, or would that ruin the opportunity of a future build there or home, for development for homes or whatever residential?
Well, so let's see. That is a possibility, I would say. But we have homes that get built next to gas wells, right? So on a developer perspective, it's not something that I think scares away everybody. There are folks, it's primarily like the end user, the buyer. Are you comfortable with living next to a gas well? Are you comfortable? And there's a lot of people that are. Is single family, right now it's zoned R2. If it's something else down the road, I mean, that'd be for another group of people, I think, to discuss. But right now it's zoned R2. It could be single family. In the staff report, I do note that we have a development coming to the southwest of this project location. And as typical with, let's say it was a gas well, let's say we were talking about a gas well, when that development goes in and they start submitting for site plan and building permit, the staff will look at the minimum distances required that have to be met before they can put a structure next to a land use such as a gas well, and I imagine it'd be similar in this instance. That distance is usually about anywhere from 300 feet to 500 feet, depending on the city. Here in this town, it's about 300 feet, I believe, to a gas well. And that measurement's taken from like a structure, the wall, to the gas well head. But this would be, the measurements for this project, we feel are gonna well exceed 500 feet from that new development that I referenced in the staff report. The back of their property, where I took a measurement from the corner, that back of that property is gonna be reserved for site detention, right? So a home would actually go a little further west of that. So if I take a measurement, I'm kind of eyeballing it from there to where their site plan shows the closest module, I'm well over 500 feet away from that. Now, will you hear something on a cold night, no wind? It won't be as loud as the speedway. Tell you that. You probably hear something, but let's say it was a gas well, there's noise requirements, reductions and things like that. And on a code enforcement side of things, if I got a complaint about a hum or a motor or something like that, we'd have to go and take a sound measurement. And I'll tell you, at that distance, you're not going to exceed any levels that would violate a noise ordinance or anything like that. So we do have that other part will be residential at some point, but anything that gets built there will have to have a minimum distance met from there, from where this site goes in.
Thanks, sir. Do you want to?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was going to open the floor if you had any more questions for me or for the team. I'll just mention quickly on, the sound. We've done this sort of sound studies, and the studies came back at the sound that you should expect is I believe it's at about 3 feet from the battery. It sounds like a loud conversation. And so by the time you get to about 10 to 20 feet, it's the level of a normal conversation. What you might, if I step away from the mic here, this is the kind of level of sound you're going to get. And so by the time you get to 500 feet plus trees that are either naturally existing or going to be planted, we don't expect anything. We also do a decommissioning studies. So we ask professional engineers to say, what does it cost to take this project, bring it back to the original form that the land is in, like we were talking about, and we place bonds with the city just in case, not that we ever plan to walk away, but I know that's one fear that a lot of cities have is, what if you guys go defunct, go bankrupt, walk away, and we're stuck with this and have to foot the bill. So that is actually working its way through the Texas legislature this session, and will likely be a requirement going forward for energy storage for projects like this. But it's something that we do, even if it's not written into the law. We do that normally for our other projects as well. But if you have any other questions about safety, taxes, land use, let's have at it. And like I said, if there's anything that you want to take your time and think about or have questions that weren't answered, happy to come back next month, when everyone's here. I want to make sure it doesn't feel like I'm trying to sneak in without Mr. Malkowski here.
I think he let his opinion was known last time too, and I don't think there was much more he could have really said to change anything at this point. So, Chief, did you have anything to add over there?
Possibly have plenty to say, but honestly, they've been great to work with. We have talked about the training that would happen, of course, emergency response plan, as was mentioned. I think all the bases are covered, but I do think of the worst case scenario, and that is when something happens, we have to respond, and we will respond. So we'll just address it when something happens. Saying that, there's hazards all over the community. There's a railroad that comes through, and if something happens there, we handle it. We will handle it with more help. We're, one station, one engine, and again, I'm probably saying more at this point, but I have talked with the fire department down in the city, Rosenberg, and they haven't had any incident responses in the year that it's been operational down there. And they did mention that the training has been great. In fact, when they forgot about, a year going by or time to train again, Cypress Creek came forward and approached them about doing some training. So it's not something they forget about and do. So I feel good about that side as far as the company working with us and addressing things. I don't have a worry, I just have a concern about when something bad happens, how we will deal with it. And a hazmat response will be involved. We will do an evacuation of an area until everything's deemed safe. So we just have that part of it to address. I understand also there may be a House bill about 500 yards. A House bill is being looked at to the nearest residence can be 500 yards. So there, things are being looked at. This is new technology. We're always learning something more about it, but they do have a lot of safety standards in place that will alert us to it if there's a problem.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Chief Brown was here before, and I just want to make sure you had your say as well.
Yeah, and of course, I wasn't here for it was in September that they were first approaching us about it. So, of course, I've watched that video of that meeting and how that went down and everything. But so if they should come aboard, we are going to respond. We are going to deal with it, and we will have help with that, and not only from Cypress Creek, but our mutual aid companies.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, was there any other? We're good. Is there anything else from you? Last attacks, last questions?
My concern would be a rush to market to try and get something recommended, goes to the council, council approves it, you start the development. I know you said that you guys won't walk away, but whenever something's new, there's a lot of things that you can strategize, the best you can, on what you know. What the fire chief was saying that, I'm not worried, but there is a concern, so.
Of course, and that's a valid concern. I always say to anyone I talk to that everyone who lives in a community should ask questions and should have concerns about what's coming into their community and want to fully understand it. And, if you want to talk through all of the studies we've done. We've been looking at the site for almost 3 years now, doing different, geotech studies, hydrology studies, burn studies to understand the safety of the batteries. And we are, if this did go forward, construction would likely begin near the end of the year, beginning of next year. And that's because we have done, 3 years of work leading up into this and feel very confident that this is still a place that we want to build. We shutter projects for any number of reasons. Whether the land isn't quite right, whether the safety doesn't come back right, whether we work with, ERCOT and they say, oh, you can't build here for X, Y, and Z reason. There's a large number of projects get shut down. That's just the nature of development. But this is one that has stood the test of time and passed all of the tests. And so it's one that we feel really good about. But like I said, if there's more that you want to talk through, I want to make sure that you feel good about it as well.
How long would the project take if it was to go through?
To build, it's about 12 to 14 months of construction between us and the utility. We work together to build the project and make sure that sort of everything's married up correctly.
All right, so thank you. Well, at this time, I'm going to call for motion. Anybody? You can.
I make a motion that we table the conditional use permit on PZ case 2507.
Any points of order? Meaning argument? You want to second it or point of order?
Just point of order on that. If you're going to motion to table it, if you'll state when you're tabling it to, so if that's like to the next regular meeting,
To the next regular meeting.
we can add that. Thank you.
Did you want to second that?
I second that.
Okay, well, all in favor of tabling this till May's meeting? All in favor? No opposed, 3-0 table till next regular meeting. All right, well, thank you very much for your time and your presentation. If there's no further business, staff, I'll go ahead and motion for adjournment.
I make a motion that we adjourn the regular meeting.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning? 3-0, it's 6:53, man, we are adjourned.